Hello and welcome to Automate with Red Hat Ansible. I'm Daniel Newman, Principal Analyst, Founding Partner at Futurum Research. And I'm excited to be the host of this series of high-impact, 8-minute conversations and interviews with leaders talking about automation in IT, security, and more. In this episode, I'm going to be joined by Chad Ferman, and we're going to be talking about the viewpoint of the architect and how you're impacting automation. Chad, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's super fun to talk to people that are in the trenches. You come over here with a wealth of experience, and this show is really all about taking that practical, real-world experience in automation, and of course, the knowledge that you have as part of Red Hat Ansible, and sharing that with the community to help them better understand, the challenges, the opportunities. So let's start there, just a little bit about your background and what landed you here at Red Hat Ansible and your role.
Sure. So I actually started in IT in the 90s, back in the dark ages, but I lucked out that I started a company that we actually had a 30-person automation team in 1995, which is kind of unheard of. And from there, I worked multiple places, from retail, worked for a little stint at DoD, and then ended up at a large Fortune 5 oil and gas company, and just built this kind of reputation of, okay, how do we take these simple things and make it where they're just simple things that computers do instead of people doing?
Yeah, that's a big task right now, and I think that's something everybody is, kind of wading the waters with, and in terms of, how much can we do, how fast can we do it, how do we do it where it's great for the company, it creates more efficiency, more productivity, and concurrently makes people feel comfortable because, of course, we're all a little nervous about it. Now, you as an architect and having been in this space for a long time, you're probably aware there's a ton of opportunity, but let's talk about the tools and talk about just how big you see the opportunity for automation.
Sure, and the way we kind of put this at the last role I was in, where I was really an enterprise architect over how we did automation across all the different business lines, is there's always going to be two tools, but try not to have too many tools. And how do you figure out which tools are the right ones, and how do you set up good processes and really have a good overarching strategy of how you use these tools, and not hundreds of people all over the place using them in different ways, but actually have a standard of how these tools are used and deployed throughout the companies.
Yeah, it's a big challenge though, right? And
yes,
so,
it's
seriously, having been in this 25 years, I mean, it's kind of a crazy amount of time for somebody to be in this space, because a lot of people still think of automation as something that's kind of just starting, and
it's
of
magic.
Course, it's auto magic, right? You just got to go to the event and move the curtain back and see what's actually happening. But we are getting to a point where it is getting more and more achievable, more realistic. The tools are super important. And that's something I was going to ask you about, because you've done this so long, you've been in the trenches so long. How do you sort of manage this whole process of automation at scale, from everything from the software itself and developing the software and managing that to, of course, securing it?
Yeah, so thinking about it from a software perspective, so you have to really understand how everything works. So a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you just put your application in the cloud and it just magically fixes the things, but that doesn't necessarily, the cloud. Man shakes fist at cloud. But really it comes down to understanding your processes and thinking about your as-is and to-be architectures. So you know how you do things today. You walk through all the processes of how you do them, and then you need to go through and start breaking those out into smaller pieces and choosing the right tools. And I can say I've used pretty much every automation tool under the sun. Big reason I came to work at Red Hat was because I couldn't do anything more with Ansible where I was, and also I can now be an influence as to how we build Ansible and make it great for everybody, and bring a lot of my kind of customer experience of, so this is actually how a customer is going to use this, not how we think the customer is going to use this. And it's going to be it's pretty exciting to me to actually be part of that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So when it comes to that, so you're getting more involved, you're touching it more, you're making impacts internally to the tools. I would like you to just touch on one thing a little bit that I asked about with security. So what are your sort of, what's your playbook in terms of securing the code as you're continuing to scale it?
So I've actually been involved a little bit with the SigStore project and how we're actually going to have this trusted supply chain of code. So really, how do we go and certify, and not just say, oh, this is a certified by Red Hat library, but this is a certified, signed, and validated library that will become part of the code. So getting into secure supply chain of how we deliver software to folks is something that's really important, and definitely on the Ansible roadmap, but huge at Red Hat just in general.
Yeah, that is a big thing, and that's why I said I wanted to reiterate it for
everyone.
Yeah, make sure they heard about it. Now, something I sort of spoke to a little bit earlier, is alignment of automation across an enterprise. Yep. Right? You as an architect and as someone that's been in that role and now working side by side, you get it, you buy into it, you see it. But organizationally, automation is something that really is a cultural shift for most organizations. Any tips and tools from sitting on both sides of the aisle, being on inside of Red Hat Ansible now and having worked for these companies before? Any kind of best practices, for getting alignment?
Absolutely. So working with the C-level, working with your directors and your managers, and getting them thinking of not just this is a cost-saving play, but this is actually a way that we can take people that are doing. So a good example, one of the places that I worked, they had 50 people that were just restarting services. Like every day they just went through tickets and just logged onto servers and just restarted services over and over. And we basically brought in, taught them Ansible, taught them basic concepts of how to store their code. And those 50 people now became 5 people that were responsible for that. Now you have 45 people that can go and do other things. And that's kind of how you have to kind of show the proof to some of those C-level levels, because they're like, oh yeah, this is just a cost savings play. It's like, actually, it's more of a how do we take these people that are doing low level work and upskill them and upgrade them to be doing higher level, more revenue generating work.
And I love that you said that, because I feel like some people out there, and of course some companies probably take it the wrong way and they use it merely for cost savings, but my studies over time have always proven that the best companies are going to deploy their resources in ways that are going to up level, that are going to continue to challenge and obviously drive top line, bottom line, customer experience. And I'm sure all of that talent had so much more to offer. So, with that in mind, with all of your experience, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about what advice do you give to the architects out there in the trenches that are trying to deploy automation at scale? How do they get started? How do they really maximize this opportunity and, of course, do it as quickly as possible?
Sure. So first thing I would say is break it up, think small. Don't try and think big. I mean, you need to think big picture at the end of it. But if you're just getting started with automation, don't try and automate your full end-to-end supply chain. Start with the little pieces and build upon it and build it. That's why we use the term modules for a lot of things we do at Ansible. Build modules, build roles, get to the point where you actually have a full stack deployment, but think about all of the pieces and don't overthink the pieces of this is the way we've always done it, because a lot of the times the way you've always done it may not be the best way to do it today as it was in 1995.
Yeah, I love that. And so just let me dial in one more level on that. So give me one or two really punchy sort of experiences that you maybe have seen where the way it was and the way it is.
The way it was and the way it is. So I've worked with, I actually just came from a sales part, so I started at Red Hat in sales, and I've seen multiple customers that have just said, well, this is the way that we do authentication, or this is the way we do this. And it's like, but that was good in the 2000s or the 90s, but there's probably better ways that we could do this that are much more secure. So kind of digging in, kind of back to what I was saying, like dig into the way that you've done it, think about the way that you could do it in a more modern way is a hard change. And like you were saying there, it's not necessarily the people process, it kind of goes to the people process. The processes you can fix. Getting people to think in that different way of doing things and understanding, yes, there is a different way for me to do this is hard, because people are creatures of habit. They get used to doing things the way they've done them, and a lot of people get complacent.
It's a great example. Chad Ferman, thanks for double clicking on that. Thanks for joining me here on the show.
Cool. Thanks, man. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for tuning in to Automate with Red Hat Ansible Automation Platform. Please subscribe to hear and watch all of these episodes. To learn more about Red Hat Ansible, you can follow the company on Twitter at Ansible or visit the website ansible.com. For more on Futurum Research, follow at Futurum Research on Twitter or on the web at futurumresearch.com.